The discovery. The impossible find. Colonel Marcus Kane stomped his boots against the metal flooring of the research station, ice crystals falling like tiny diamonds in the harsh fluorescent light. 3 months in Antarctica had taught him that the cold here wasn't just weather, it was a living thing that crept into your bones and made a home there. "Colonel, you need to see this," Lieutenant Jade Rivera called from across the cramped communications bay. Her breath formed small clouds as she spoke, despite the heaters running at full capacity. "Professor Petrov's team has found something." Kane frowned, pulling his thermal jacket tighter. "Found what? Another fossil? I thought we were here for mineral surveys." Rivera shook her head, dark eyes wide with excitement. "Sir, this isn't a fossil. It's impossible. Deep beneath the ice." 2 hours later, Kane found himself rappelling down a shaft that hadn't existed yesterday. Professor Viktor Petrov's drilling team had broken through into a vast cavern system 300 meters beneath the ice sheet. What they'd found defied everything Kane knew about geology, archaeology, and common sense. "The structure appears to be artificial," Petrov's voice crackled through the comm system. The elderly Russian scientist's accent became thicker when he was excited, and right now he sounded like he was vibrating with energy. "The walls are perfectly smooth, Colonel. Perfectly smooth. No tool marks, no construction seams. It's as if someone melted the rock and shaped it like clay." Kane's boots touched solid ground, and he looked around in amazement. The cavern was enormous, his headlamp beam couldn't reach the far wall. But what made his breath catch wasn't the size. It was the fact that the walls glowed with a soft, blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. "How long has this been here?" Kane asked, his voice echoing strangely in the vast space. "Based on the ice formation above," Petrov replied, emerging from behind a massive pillar that seemed to grow from the floor, "at least 50,000 years. Maybe more." The Chamber of Secrets. Lieutenant Rivera landed beside Kane with practiced ease. She'd been rappelling since she was 12, growing up in Colorado's mountain country. But even she seemed shaken by what they'd discovered. "The really weird part is the temperature," she said, checking her instruments. "It's warm down here. 68 degrees Fahrenheit. There's no heat source we can detect, but it's perfectly comfortable." They followed Petrov deeper into the structure. The corridors were wide enough for 3 people to walk side by side, with a ceiling that disappeared into darkness above them. Strange symbols covered the walls, not carved, but somehow part of the rock itself, glowing faintly with the same blue light. "Have you seen symbols like these before?" Kane asked the professor. Petrov shook his head slowly. "Nothing in any archaeological record. But Colonel, I don't think these are from any human civilization." They entered a circular chamber where Kane's questions about the symbols became irrelevant. In the center of the room stood a pedestal holding what could only be described as a crystal, though it was unlike any crystal Kane had ever seen. It was perfectly spherical, about the size of a basketball, and it contained what looked like tiny galaxies swirling within its depths. "The awakening signs." "Don't touch anything," Kane ordered, though he found his own hand reaching toward the crystal before he caught himself. "Sir," Rivera said, her voice tight with concern, "my equipment is going crazy. I'm reading energy signatures that shouldn't be possible. This thing is putting out more power than a nuclear reactor, but there's no radiation." As they watched, the crystal began to pulse brighter. The symbols on the walls responded, their glow intensifying with each pulse. Kane felt something deep in his chest, not quite a sound, more like a vibration that seemed to resonate with his heartbeat. "We need to get a team down here," Kane said, backing toward the corridor. "Full scientific crew, military security, and someone who knows about Dash." He was interrupted by a low humming that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The crystal's light suddenly blazed so bright they had to shield their eyes. When the light faded, the sphere was floating 6 inches above its pedestal, rotating slowly. "Colonel," Petrov whispered, his face pale in the blue glow, I don't think this is a relic. I think it's been waiting. Questions without answers. The three of them stood in stunned silence, watching the impossible crystal spin in defiance of gravity. Kane's military training kicked in: assess the threat, secure the area, report to command. But how do you report that you found something that challenges everything humanity knows about its own planet? Sir, Rivera said quietly, there's something else. My seismic equipment is picking up movement deeper down. Big movement. Like something massive is shifting position. Kane felt a chill that had nothing to do with the Antarctic cold. Whatever they'd found, it was just the beginning. The crystal pulsed again, and for a moment, Kane could swear he heard something like music, complex, beautiful, and utterly alien. As they prepared to ascend back to the surface, none of them noticed the way the symbols on the walls had begun to change, rearranging themselves into new patterns. Patterns that looked almost like countdown sequences. The discovery would change everything. But deep beneath the ice, ancient mechanisms were already beginning to stir, responding to the presence of humanity for the first time in millennia. The awakening. Military lockdown. General Harrison Blake arrived at the Antarctic Research Station with 2 transport planes full of soldiers and scientists. The gruff, gray-haired veteran had seen combat on 4 continents, but nothing had prepared him for the reports coming out of the ice. "Show me," he demanded, not bothering with pleasantries as he stormed into the command tent. Dr. Nolan Cross, the military's top physicist, looked up from a bank of computer screens. His normally steady hands were shaking as he pointed to the readings. "General, the energy output has increased by 300% since yesterday. Whatever's down there is definitely powering up." Blake studied the data, his weathered face grim. 3 days had passed since Colonel Kane's initial discovery, and the situation was escalating rapidly. The crystal wasn't just floating anymore, it was actively scanning everything around it with beams of light that their instruments couldn't properly analyze. The deep expedition. Captain Luna Torres finished checking her equipment for the 3rd time. The young officer had volunteered to lead the expanded expedition into the cavern system, and she wasn't taking any chances. Her team included 12 specialists, all armed with experimental detection gear that Dr. Cross had flown in from classified military labs. "Remember," Blake's voice crackled through her comm unit, "observe and record only. No one touches anything without my direct authorization." Torres descended into the glowing depths with her team spread out in formation. The changes since the first expedition were immediately obvious. The blue light had spread throughout the entire structure, and new passages had opened, not carved or blasted, but simply formed as if the rock had flowed like water. "General," Torres reported, her voice tight with amazement, "the layout has completely changed. It's like the whole place is rebuilding itself. Living architecture." Dr. Cross monitored the expedition from the surface, his instruments tracking the team's progress through the transformed cavern system. What he was seeing defied every law of physics he knew. "The structure is definitely organic in some way," he reported to General Blake. "Not biological, but responsive. It's reacting to human presence, learning from us." The crystal chamber had tripled in size. The floating sphere was now surrounded by dozens of smaller crystals that had emerged from the walls. Each one hummed with a different frequency, creating a complex symphony of sound that seemed to resonate with human brainwaves. "Sir," Torres called through the comm, "I'm reading massive structural changes deeper in the system. It's like the whole mountain is hollow, and something big is moving around down there." Blake felt a cold knot form in his stomach. "Define big, Captain." "I'm talking about something the size of a city block, sir. Maybe bigger." The signal. Dr. Cross's computers suddenly erupted in alerts. Energy readings spiked off the charts as the crystal system sent a powerful signal into space, a signal that their instruments could track but not decode. "General," Cross said, his face pale, "that transmission just traveled faster than light. That's impossible according to everything we know about physics." Blake stared at the data streams flowing across the screens. 40 years of military service had taught him to trust his instincts, and right now every instinct was screaming danger. The signal is repeating, Cross continued. Every 30 seconds, same pattern. It's like a beacon. Or a distress call, Blake muttered. Underground revelations. Deep in the cavern system, Captain Torres and her team discovered chambers filled with technology that belonged in science fiction movies. Massive machines lined the walls, their surfaces covered in the same flowing symbols they'd seen before. But now the symbols were moving, changing, creating new patterns faster than the human eye could follow. "It's beautiful," whispered Sergeant Ryan Park, the team's tech specialist. "Like watching thoughts form in a computer brain." Torres grabbed his arm as he reached toward one of the machines. "Remember the general's orders. No touching." But the machines didn't need human contact to activate. As the team watched in amazement, systems began coming online throughout the chamber. Lights cascaded across control panels, and holographic displays materialized in the air, showing star charts of galaxies they didn't recognize. "Captain," Dr. Cross's voice came through the comm with barely controlled excitement, "we're detecting massive power fluctuations. Whatever's happening down there, it's affecting systems across multiple levels." The deep stirring. The seismic sensors placed throughout the ice sheet registered movement unlike anything in recorded history. Something enormous was shifting position deep beneath the Antarctic ice, something that had been dormant for thousands of years. General Blake studied the seismic data with growing alarm. The movement patterns suggested multiple massive objects, each one larger than an aircraft carrier, slowly changing position in a coordinated pattern. "Sir," Dr. Cross said quietly, "I think we've woken something up. Something that was meant to stay asleep until humanity found it." The implications hit Blake like a physical blow. This wasn't just an archaeological discovery, it was a sleeping weapons system. And if their calculations were correct, the signal they detected had just announced to the universe that Earth's ancient guardians were stirring. "Get Captain Torres and her team out of there," Blake ordered. "Now." The first response. But it was already too late. High above Earth's atmosphere, something responded to the signal. A brief distortion in space that lasted less than a second, invisible to human instruments but detected by the awakening systems beneath the ice. The crystal in the chamber pulsed once with brilliant white light, and every computer screen in the research station displayed the same message in perfect English: "They come. Prepare." As Captain Torres and her team raced toward the surface, the ancient machines began their startup sequences. Humanity had found its inheritance, but they were about to discover that some gifts come with a terrible price. The countdown had begun, and Earth had visitors coming. First contact gone wrong. Arrival. 3 days after the mysterious message appeared on every screen at the Antarctic station, humanity got its answer. Ambassador David Sterling was in the middle of an emergency UN Security Council meeting when every communication device on Earth simultaneously activated. The message was simple, transmitted in perfect human languages: "We are the hegemony. Your species will be evaluated for integration or elimination. Prepare for assessment." Within 6 hours, massive ships materialized at the edge of Earth's solar system. Not one or two vessels, but an entire fleet of geometric nightmares that defied human understanding of engineering. Each ship was the size of a small moon, their surfaces crawling with what looked like living metal. "How many?" Sterling asked the military briefing officer, though he dreaded the answer. 200 confirmed vessels, sir. Possibly more hiding behind the outer planets. The failed diplomacy. Commander Rex Holt watched the alien fleet through the viewscreen of the ISS-2, humanity's newest space station. The grizzled space veteran had spent 15 years in orbit, but nothing had prepared him for the sight of the hegemony fleet arranging itself in perfect battle formation around Earth. "They're not responding to any communication attempts," reported Lieutenant Kim Tanaka from the communications bay. "We've tried every frequency, every protocol we can think of. Sterling's voice crackled through from Earth. "Keep trying, Commander. We need to establish dialogue before this escalates." But the aliens had their own timeline. A single vessel, smaller than the others but still massive by human standards, detached from the fleet and moved into Earth's orbit. It positioned itself directly above the Antarctic research station where the crystal had been discovered. The assessment. Pilot Zara Quinn was running a routine patrol flight when the alien ship's scanning beams swept across her fighter jet. The energy field was unlike anything in human technology. It didn't just scan her aircraft, it seemed to look right through her soul. "Control, this is Quinn," she reported, trying to keep her voice steady. "They're not just scanning our technology. I can feel them in my head somehow." On the surface, the Antarctic research station's instruments went wild as the alien scanning intensified. General Blake watched in horrified fascination as the readings showed the aliens weren't just examining human technology, they were studying the ancient crystal system. "They know about the crystals," Dr. Cross reported, his face pale. "Their scans are focused entirely on the cavern system." The scanning stopped abruptly, and for a moment, an eerie silence settled over Earth. Then the alien ship transmitted a single message directly to every world leader simultaneously: "Assessment complete. Species classification, primitive but contaminated. Ancient technology detected. Cleansing protocol authorized. Earth's desperate defense." Ambassador Sterling felt his blood freeze as the implications became clear. The aliens weren't here to negotiate, they were here to eliminate humanity because of what had been found beneath the ice. "Launch everything we have," Sterling ordered, knowing it was hopeless but unable to stand by and do nothing. Earth's military response was swift but pathetic by galactic standards. Fighter jets, missiles, and orbital platforms opened fire on the alien vessel. The weapons struck powerful energy shields and simply disappeared, absorbed without causing any damage whatsoever. Commander Holt watched from the space station as humanity's most advanced weapons proved utterly useless. "It's like throwing rocks at a battleship," he muttered. The alien response was surgical and devastating. Energy beams lanced out from the orbiting ship, precisely targeting every military installation on Earth. Bases, missile silos, naval vessels, all destroyed in a matter of minutes with weapons that made nuclear bombs look like firecrackers. The message. Pilot Quinn barely managed to eject before her fighter was vaporized by an alien beam weapon. As she parachuted toward the ocean, she watched the systematic destruction of Earth's military might with growing despair. But the aliens weren't targeting civilian populations. Their attacks were precise, clinical, focused entirely on military assets. It was a demonstration of power, not genocide. When the attack stopped, a new message appeared on every surviving communication device: "Your military capability has been neutralized. You have one planetary rotation to surrender your ancient artifacts for destruction. Compliance will result in integration into the hegemony as a servant species. Resistance will result in planetary sterilization." The choice. In the ruins of the Pentagon Situation Room, what remained of Earth's leadership gathered around emergency communication equipment. Ambassador Sterling looked at the faces around the table: generals, presidents, prime ministers, all united in their helplessness. 24 hours, Sterling said grimly. "They're giving us 24 hours to hand over the Antarctic discovery or face extinction." General Blake's voice came through the comm from Antarctica: "Sir, there's something you need to know. The crystal system has been responding to the alien presence. The energy output has increased exponentially since their arrival." Dr. Cross's excitement was audible despite the desperate circumstances. "General Blake is right. The ancient system is activating defensive protocols. It's like it recognizes the aliens as a threat." "Are you suggesting," Sterling asked carefully, "that this crystal technology might actually be a weapon?" "Not just a weapon," Blake replied. "I think it's a weapon specifically designed to fight these aliens. The question is whether we can figure out how to use it in time." The underground response. Deep beneath the Antarctic ice, the ancient systems were indeed responding to the hegemony threat. Machines that had slumbered for millennia were powering up with increasing urgency. The main crystal had grown to 3 times its original size, and its light was now visible from the surface even through hundreds of meters of ice. Captain Torres led a new expedition into the depths, racing against the alien deadline. What her team found defied belief. An entire underground city was awakening, its corridors filled with flowing energy and walls covered in symbols that now pulsed with urgent meaning. "It's like the whole system has been waiting for this moment," Torres reported. "Waiting for humanity to find it just as these aliens arrived." But activating ancient alien technology was one thing. Understanding how to use it was another entirely. And with less than 20 hours remaining until the hegemony's deadline, Earth's survival depended on unlocking secrets that had been buried beneath the ice since before human civilization began. The ancient guardians were stirring, but would they awaken in time to save the species they had been left to protect? The Ancient Alliance. The Revelation. Admiral Thomas Grant had seen combat in 3 wars, but nothing had prepared him for what he witnessed in the Antarctic cavern. With only 12 hours remaining until the hegemony's deadline, the ancient crystal system had transformed the entire underground complex into something that looked like the command center of a galactic empire. "Sir," Engineer Finn Walsh called from a massive control console that had emerged from what had been a blank wall just hours before, "I'm getting readings I can't explain. This technology is interfacing directly with our neural patterns." The main crystal now dominated a cathedral-sized chamber, its faceted surface showing detailed holographic displays of the hegemony fleet. But more disturbing were the images of other worlds, dozens of planets reduced to lifeless rock by the same aliens now threatening Earth. "How long have they been doing this?" Admiral Grant asked, though he wasn't sure who he was asking. The answer came not from his team, but from the crystal itself. A voice spoke directly into their minds, not heard through their ears, but understood through some deeper connection. The voice was ancient, sad, and unmistakably alien. "For 3 million Earth years, the hegemony has consumed worlds. We were the last civilization to resist them successfully. Before our defeat, we seeded the galaxy with guardians, weapons hidden on worlds that showed potential for producing worthy allies." The Guardian's story. Navigator Iris Vale watched in amazement as the chamber walls came alive with scenes from galactic history. Vast space battles between technologies that made current human science look like stone tools. Civilizations that spanned multiple star systems, all falling before the relentless advance of the hegemony. "You were chosen," the ancient voice continued, "not because of your current abilities, but because of your potential. Your species possesses something the hegemony fears, the ability to adapt, to improvise, to find solutions where none should exist." Admiral Grant felt a chill as he realized the implications. "You've been watching us. Testing us. Every war you have fought, every crisis you have overcome, every moment when humans chose courage over surrender, we have observed. Your species' greatest strength is not your technology or your numbers. It is your refusal to accept defeat even when victory seems impossible." The holographic displays shifted, showing human history from an alien perspective. World War II, the Cold War, the space race, countless smaller conflicts where humans had snatched victory from the jaws of defeat through sheer stubborn determination. The awakening giants. Engineer Walsh's instruments detected massive movement throughout the Antarctic ice sheet. Seismic sensors placed across the continent registered coordinated activity on a scale that suggested the entire landmass was hollow. "Admiral," Walsh reported with barely controlled excitement, "there are structures beneath the ice that span the entire continent. We're talking about a complex that's larger than most countries." The ancient voice confirmed their readings. The Guardians were designed to integrate with local resources. Your Antarctic ice sheet provided perfect concealment and raw materials for construction. For 50,000 years, we have been building, preparing, waiting for the moment when humanity would be ready to claim its inheritance. Through the crystal's interface, they could see it all, massive factories beneath the ice producing weapons and ships using technology that was impossibly advanced. Construction facilities that had been operating autonomously for millennia, creating an arsenal specifically designed to fight the hegemony. How many ships? Admiral Grant asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. Sufficient, the voice replied. But the vessels require human crews. The Guardians were designed to amplify human capabilities, not replace them. Your creativity, your ability to think beyond predetermined parameters, these cannot be programmed into machines. The integration. The process of connecting human minds with the ancient technology was unlike anything in human experience. Navigator Vale found herself linked directly to star charts that showed the galaxy as it really was, not the empty void humans had imagined, but a vast battlefield where the hegemony had been systematically exterminating every species with potential for resistance. We can see their weaknesses, Vale reported, her consciousness expanded beyond normal human limits. The hegemony relies on overwhelming technological superiority, but they've grown complacent. They haven't faced real resistance in millions of years. Engineer Walsh interfaced with the production systems, his mind connecting with manufacturing processes that defied human understanding. Admiral, I can control the construction directly through thought. It's like the machines are extensions of my own body. But the integration came with a cost. The ancient technology revealed the full scope of the hegemony threat, not just the fleet currently surrounding Earth, but thousands of other fleets spread across the galaxy, each one capable of destroying entire star systems. The choice. Admiral Grant stood at the center of the crystal chamber, feeling the weight of humanity's future pressing down on him. The Guardian technology could give Earth the power to fight back, but it would fundamentally change what it meant to be human. If we accept this alliance, Grant asked the ancient voice, what happens to humanity? You become what you were always meant to be, came the reply. Guardians of freedom in a galaxy that has forgotten what the word means. But the choice must be freely made. We will not force this burden upon you. Through the crystal's interface, Grant could see the hegemony fleet adjusting its formation, preparing for the final assault that would sterilize Earth. In 6 hours, they would begin their attack whether humanity surrendered or not. The other civilizations, Grant asked, the ones who chose to fight, what happened to them? They died as free beings rather than live as slaves. But they bought time for others, scattered seeds of resistance throughout the galaxy. You are the culmination of their sacrifice. The decision. Engineer Walsh looked up from the control systems, his eyes bright with possibility. Admiral, I can see the ship specifications. They're not just weapons, they're works of art. Each one is custom designed to interface with human consciousness, to amplify our natural abilities 1,000-fold. Navigator Vale nodded agreement. The star charts show dozens of enslaved worlds. Billions of beings under hegemony control. If we can break their fleet here, it might inspire others to resist. Admiral Grant felt the crystal's power flowing through him, showing him possibilities beyond human imagination. Ships that could travel between stars as easily as crossing a room. Weapons that could crack planets. Technology that could reshape matter at the atomic level. But beneath it all was a simple truth: this wasn't about becoming gods. It was about remaining human in the face of an enemy that sought to erase humanity's very existence. We accept, Grant said quietly, and the words echoed through every crystal in the chamber. Far beneath their feet, the first of the Guardian ships began to rise through the ice, ready to show the galaxy that humanity's greatest weapon had always been its refusal to surrender.